What is up, fellas? Today we are tackling some running back trade targets heading into week 7 of fantasy football. We're doing this a little differently this week because I'm heading out of town for a day or two, and Danny's going to tackle the wide receiver trade targets solo. So I'm going to be breaking down 4 running backs that you should go and trade for, 2 sell highs, and 4 buy lows. So let's get right into it, starting with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I've talked a lot about elite running back buys so far. The reason we want to go out and buy elite running backs is because we're trying to upgrade our starting lineup, especially as you get through the season. You start to realize who's a really good player on your team, who's maybe not so good player on your team, and you're looking to make upgrades to your starting lineup. So I've talked about Bijan Robinson, who obviously had a great week this past week. Breece Hall, same thing. Devon Achane. I've talked even about Saquon Barkley, who coming off of a subpar week against the Browns, he has potential to have more value than what people are thinking he has on the open market right now. But Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of the forgotten guy, and the reason for that is actually because he's not even the highest scoring fantasy running back on his team. David Montgomery right now is outscoring Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Jahmyr Gibbs is suddenly going to start commanding all of the goal line work for the team, or he's going to, get all the inside the 5 carries or get all the red zone work, or he's going to command 7 targets a game, because that's clearly not happening. It looks like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery have the same split that they had last year for the most part. It's clear that David Montgomery is going to carry the workload where it matters in the red zone. Jahmyr Gibbs has only gotten about, 31% of the team's inside the 5 carries, and most of those actually came in the first game of the season. But Jahmyr Gibbs is on an elite offense. The Detroit Lions comfortably project for 27, 28, 29 implied points in every single game that they play, and they have a bunch of high-scoring games coming up. They also just lost their best defensive player for the season in Aiden Hutchinson, so they're going to have to score to win games. David Montgomery has a lot of miles on the odometer, so he's the type of guy that as the season goes along, I think it was about this time last year that he suffered his first injury, and that led to Jahmyr Gibbs kind of having that breakout season where he finished as a back-end RB1. We know that the implied upside for both of these guys is extremely, extremely high, but of the two of them, David Montgomery takes the bigger pounding, the type of running back carries that he gets. Also, the fact that he has less tread on the tires because he's been running in the NFL for a number of years, and Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't get those dirty carries that lead to a lot of injuries. So if David Montgomery goes down anytime soon, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a huge, huge implied upside. But even without that, I still think he is a mid to low-end RB1 rest of season, given the offense that he plays in. So if you are in need of high-end running back talent, maybe you have some RB2 type guys that are producing at a high level and you want to upgrade. DeAndre Swift is a guy I'm going to talk about in the sell highs who fits the bill for this. I do think that Jahmyr Gibbs is the perfect guy to go after, because right now in trades, according to our Flock trade calculator, which of course you guys can get access to by hitting the link down below in the pinned comment, flockfantasy.com. I have my rest of season rankings updated as of today. I have my dynasty rankings up to date. I'm going to be dropping a rookie rankings 2025 rookie picks article very, very soon as well. So if you guys are interested in all our bonus content, it's over there. You can use our trade finder tool, which is a free tool that I am using here. You can see Jahmyr Gibbs in a sleeper league was traded for Josh Jacobs, Terry McLaurin. He also got Wandale on that side. I like that side for him. Debo and Zay Flowers for Jahmyr Gibbs. If you have a lot of wide receivers and you need running back help, that makes some sense. This Debo and Jahmyr Gibbs trade makes sense as well. I think Gibbs is just the type of guy that most people may be valuing as a mid RB2, high-end RB2, even despite where he was drafted in fantasy drafts. He just hasn't produced like some of the other RB2s in fantasy, like Brian Robinson, like DeAndre Swift in recent weeks, even like Chuba Hubbard types. I think you could use to potentially upgrade to a guy like that. And I think his best days are ahead of him at the end of the season here. He's still producing at a top 15 level, give or take, 15.4 PPR points per game. But I do think there is a lot of meat left on the bone for what Jahmyr Gibbs can do. And like I said, the implied upside, if David Montgomery misses any time, especially if that is crucial time of the year, weeks 15 to 17 or something like that, Gibbs absolutely has a super high ceiling. So next up, we have J.K. Dobbins, and I called J.K. Dobbins last week on my tier list video one of the best kept secrets in fantasy football, period, entering week 6. And he had a great game, had an RB1 caliber performance on Sunday against the Denver Broncos, and what was actually a really tough matchup for him. And I'm buying really high on J.K. Dobbins, and the reason for that is because I'm no longer questioning his ability to handle this workload. I'm no longer questioning whether or not he's going to get the usage. Gus Edwards is out for the next 3 more games. He was out for the first game here, now on IR. And even though Kamani Vidal was getting some usage there, he only had about 24% of the snaps. J.K. Dobbins is the RB1 here. I'm finding myself asking questions like, would I rather have Josh Jacobs rest the season or J.K. Dobbins? Would I rather have Brian Robinson rest the season or J.K. Dobbins? Would I rather have David Montgomery rest the season or J.K. Dobbins? I'm looking at this workload, and I'm starting to realize that he belongs in this conversation with Joe Mixon, with David Montgomery, with James Cook. You could even lump in guys like Jonathan Taylor or Alvin Kamara or somebody like that into this conversation, because Dobbins is getting that good of a workload for an offense now that has a healthy quarterback who wasn't healthy the last couple of games prior to the bye, and the offensive line wasn't great either. So with Dobbins, you're looking at a guy who's playing at a high level, getting a great workload. You can probably get him as a mid RB2 price tag, maybe even a low-end RB2 price tag, like some of the trades you see here. J.K. Dobbins and Juju acquired for Braylon Allen and Cooper. J.K. Dobbins for Deontay Johnson. J.K. Dobbins for his teammate Ladd McConkey. Some of these trades indicate that J.K. Dobbins is valued as a mid to low-end RB2 on the open market right now, and I would say for sure that he needs to be treated at least as a high-end RB2 where I have him ranked. And you could even make the argument that if the Chargers' schedule opens up a little bit, which is expected to in the next couple of games here, then he has actual RB1 upside. So J.K. Dobbins, definitely a guy that I'm buying high on right now. The next guy that I want to talk about is a little bit of an enigma, and that's Rhamondre Stevenson. And here's why I'm hesitant to buy in on Rhamondre, because there's reasons to buy in and there's reasons not to buy in. The reason I'm hesitant to buy in is because the usage has been kind of up and down. Week 3, you guys can see we kind of throw that one away because he missed like 2 quarters of that Thursday game against the Jets with a hand issue. But in week 5, we heard Rhamondre Stevenson's getting benched, basically. Antonio Gibson's going to be the starting running back because Rhamondre's been fumbling too much, and we can't have that happen. And then Rhamondre Stevenson went out and put up 19.1 PPR points, had 18 opportunities to Antonio Gibson's 10. Now, part of me thought, hey, maybe that's a sell-high window on Rhamondre Stevenson. But what happened after that? Okay, Rhamondre misses week 6. He had a helmet to the calf or whatever. The injury timeline for Rhamondre Stevenson is looking like he'll be back in week 7, at the very latest week 8. So that also gives you a little bit of a buying window, knowing that people are down on Rhamondre Stevenson right now. And in his absence, Antonio Gibson did absolutely nothing, had like 29 yards on 13 carries or whatever it was. The real reason I am buying into Rhamondre Stevenson is because the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft, Drake May, looked quite good in that game. And the reason that I like Rhamondre Stevenson is because I think the offense will be much better. And this was a brutal matchup for Drake May. I would not have been shocked if he looked exactly like a rookie quarterback, in over his head, can't escape the pressure, can't make plays downfield. The Texans defense has made a lot more experienced quarterbacks shrivel in the face of this defense. Josh Allen didn't have a great game 2 weeks ago. Trevor Lawrence had a bad game 3 weeks ago. So I look at what Drake May was able to do in a tough matchup. The Patriots also have the 2nd easiest remaining schedule for the running back position, according to my matchup chart. I think he can make this offense relevant, and I think that Rhamondre Stevenson, given the prior RB1 production that we've seen from him before, the fact that he's being paid like an RB1, and the fact that his backup is more unreliable than he is, it would be different if he had like a Devin Singletary backup that coaches love and coaches trust. But Antonio Gibson has more fumbles over his last 400 carries than Rhamondre Stevenson does. He has 11 fumbles over his last 400 carries than Stevenson, who has 9. So for me, I look at Stevenson with the ambiguity of the injury, with the fact that the offense isn't very good. I think the offense can be better. I think the injury is not really that big of a deal. And I think Antonio Gibson will eventually fade back into obscurity, and Rhamondre will take back over this workload. So if you're looking for a guy with like RB2 level baseline, maybe you ran a hero RB and you've suffered some injuries or whatever, I think Rhamondre Stevenson is the type of guy that you can sell high on, like a random wide receiver 3-4 type, and go up and get Rhamondre Stevenson. Maybe Wan'Dale Robinson or somebody like that who's had a couple of good games can get you to a guy like Stevenson. Right now, you see Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary for Rhamondre. I think that's a half-decent trade, especially if that backfield becomes a committee. Rico Dowdle, a good example of somebody who's had some good games going up for Rhamondre. I think that makes sense. Keon Coleman, kind of same thing. One honorable mention that I wanted to shout out as well, as far as like buy high running backs or buy low running backs, Nick Chubb is one guy that I think I would be sending out offers for. Now, every running back for the Cleveland Browns is a ball of dust right now. Jerome Ford is the best one, and he's likely out the next 2 to 3 games with a hamstring pull. So that gives Nick Chubb opportunity once he comes back this week, and it is projected he's going to play in week 7. That was the timeline they've always been talking about. They opened his practice window 2 weeks ago, and he is now set to make his season debut for the Browns. The Browns have been very patient with Nick Chubb. It has been over a year since his ACL surgery, and I might remind you guys that sometimes we nerds like to condemn these athletes, not able to come back. This is what the timeline suggests. This is what the production looks like. Some guys are just simply unique physical specimens, man. I think that Nick Chubb is one of those guys. I would not be shocked if this dude is every bit as good as he was before the injury. And the Browns desperately need an offensive identity right now. And the offensive line's starting to get a little bit more healthy. Deshaun Watson looks bad. He looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, but he did technically have his best game of the season. I'm grasping at straws for the offense here. I really do think that Nick Chubb's presence helps that offense out a ton, especially if he is the Nick Chubb of old. And I think given the fact that it's been over a year since he suffered his injury back in week 2 of last year, it looks like he should be back on track and ready to play and ready to command some touches. It's probably going to take a couple games for him to actually get a reasonable workload, but I do think he will carve out that role that we know he's capable of. Target him if you are 4-2 or better. If you have a 4-2, 5-1, 6-0 fantasy team, I think that Nick Chubb is the perfect guy to go after for some late season upside, because I think Nick Chubb knows that if he has a great season this year after a big injury and has a couple more productive years, maybe another year or two in the NFL, he has a chance to make the Hall of Fame. So I really do think he is working tirelessly to make sure that he cements his legacy in the NFL and in NFL history. So for me with Nick Chubb, I think he is a great throw-in for a guy that we know legitimately has Hall of Fame caliber talent, who is available probably as a throw-in RB2, RB3 kind of price tag right now, because there's a lot of ambiguity about what a gruesome, severe knee injury he suffered just a year ago. So I feel pretty good about him as a buy low right now. A couple sell highs like I talked about to get to some of these buy lows. DeAndre Swift is one of the guys that I'm selling high on right now. He just played the single easiest stretch of running back defenses that we will see all season. The Jaguars, the Panthers, and the Colts, the last 3 games. To be fair, he was outstanding in those games. He was a top 8 running back in all 3. But those defenses ranked 30th, 31st, and 29th in schedule-adjusted running back points allowed to the position. So that schedule, very, very easy for DeAndre Swift. Of course, Caleb Williams looks great. We're all excited about the Bears' offense right now. But their schedule for the run is dead last for the rest of the season. They are not in a good situation. You could probably sell this dude this week. Again, they do have a bye, so it might make it a little bit more challenging. But if you can use, maybe you have to hold him for one more week after the bye, DeAndre Swift to go up and get Jahmyr Gibbs or Achane or James Cook types. Again, you may not be able to swap those guys one for one, but it might be, let's say, DeAndre Swift plus a Wan'Dale Robinson or plus some other guy that's on your bench, a Rashid Shaheed, a Khalil Shakir, somebody like that, and that gets you up to Devon Achane, to Jahmyr Gibbs, to James Cook, or gets you within striking distance of those players. I absolutely would make that move, because remember, this is DeAndre Swift. He's streaky. He does this. He's done this in Detroit. He's done this in Philadelphia. He's still the same like mid to low end RB2 that he's always been. And as much as I love what this offense is doing, they just played a very, very easy stretch of defenses, and they're going to have warts, going to have struggles for the next couple of games, in my opinion, given the strength of defenses that they're going up against is about to get better. And then closing out this video, my sell high running back number 2 is James Conner. And this was always the thesis for James Conner. I hope you guys realized this when you drafted him, if you drafted him, that James Conner was always an early season play. He was always going to be the type of guy that the first 6 weeks of the season, and we're entering week 7 now, he is going to have a great workload. He is going to be effective. He is probably going to be a top 15 running back, and that's exactly what he has been so far this season. But here's what's going to happen over the next couple of games, probably over the next 5 to 10 games. James Conner is slowly going to break down, because he's done that every season of his career. He played 13 games last year, 13 games the year before that. He's missed 25% of his starts the last 2 seasons. He's 29. He is over the age and touch apex as well, with 1,500 career touches under his belt. The team knew this, and they drafted 3rd-round rookie Trey Benson in the NFL draft. He was my highest-rated running back in the entire draft class. Higher than Bucky Irving, who has looked great. Higher than Braylon Allen, who has looked great. Higher than Jonathan Brooks, who is still coming off the ACL tear, but will probably look great once he's on the field. All of these young guys that are balling right now, Trey Benson was the best one in college. They drafted the successor for this backfield. He was raw. He's probably learned a lot from James Conner over the first couple games of the season. He is starting to become a factor in this backfield, because Conner was banged up this week, and then Trey Benson took over some of the carries and looked pretty solid in relief of James Conner. It would be wise to sell high on James Conner right now. It doesn't necessarily have to be for Trey Benson. I'm not suggesting that. What I think you should do is take James Conner and go up and get a younger running back with more late season upside who can replace that production that you got from James Conner early on in the year, like a Devon Achane. Once Tua comes back on the field, he's going to be outstanding. So go buy low on somebody like that. I talked about Jahmyr Gibbs already. I talked about J.K. Dobbins already. James Cook is also a decent one. Maybe you can get within striking distance of some of the other top guys like a Saquon, a Breece Hall, a Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, somebody like that. Use James Conner to try and get up to players like this. It might not work necessarily in sharp leagues, but I'm telling you right now, at some point, there's going to be a spot where James Conner takes a big time hit in value. Maybe it takes injury, which again is a decent projection given his age and injury history, and also the fact that they could just decide Trey Benson needs to get more touches, especially if the Cardinals keep losing games, which is currently what's happening right now. They might decide to get their younger running back more experience, more touches to go on in the future. So all I know about James Conner right now is that he has a lengthy injury history. He has a lot of touches under his belt, and they drafted a very, very talented running back behind him. Eventually, I think he will lose value on the open market. It's like that stock that you have that is at an all-time high right now, and you feel like you need to get rid of it. To me, that is what James Conner represents. Even though he didn't have a great game this week, maybe you want to wait a week or two for him to have a good week. I think he's the type of guy that you need to offload from your fantasy roster and get a better late season projection. So if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like down below. Of course, stay tuned for Danny's wide receiver version of this video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here as well. If you want my rest of season rankings, dynasty rankings, all that good stuff, that is at flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up for 7 days for free, 30% off any of the packages, and 6 months for free, and a free team review when you sign up annually over on the site there. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. Also, be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy, our show sponsor. Use code FSE at sign up and first deposit. Deposit $10, make a play on the site, and you will get our weekly start sit rankings manifesto for free to help you with your fantasy lineups all season long. So if that interests you, both linked down below in the pinned comment. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. But with that being said, peace out, and I'll talk to you soon.